Good afternoon, everyone. I see that people are still trickling in, but in the interest of time and not wanting to make the people who have joined on time wait, we will start the webinar today. So let me quickly introduce Payal Agarwal to you, who is going to facilitate this session for us. Payal is a software developer by profession and a public speaker by passion. She has spoken on multiple platforms, including the TED stage. She also loves poetry, trekking, dancing, and has performed on multiple stage events. She also happens to be one of the first beneficiaries of the first partnerships that Inker has had with Sheenomics for the Lead Like a Girl Fellowship. And I personally know Payal, and I have seen her passion for all the things that I spoke about in terms of her introduction. So I will not take more time, and I will hand it over to Payal to take us through this wonderful session on how to create that smash resume, because all of us know that resumes on paper look the same. You can write any kinds of adjectives on that, but it's not going to cut through, the recruiter's eyes and then reach the hiring manager. So let us now sit and wait to hear from Payal in terms of how to make it that smashing that it at least goes through and takes you till the interview stage. Over to you, Payal. A few do's and don'ts for everyone. Please keep yourselves on mute and your video off. If you have a question or any comment to make, you can please raise your hands or put it up on the chat window, and we will then unmute you and allow you to talk. Okay, Payal, take over.
Right. Thank you so much, Nija, for that warm introduction. It's really heartening to know you, and it's really inspiring to know the kind of work that you've been doing, and we all look up to you. So here's my little contribution to the Sheenomics, beneficiary that I got out of Inghar. And as we all know, the session it'll be totally focused on how to create a outstanding resume, a smash resume. For the sake of better audio, I will just mute my, stop my video, and if there's any concern, just let me know. Okay, so the two of us, we both, Akansha and me, are both fellows of a scholarship and a fellowship program called Lead Like a Girl. This fellowship is basically driven by two women, and Bhavya and Bhavna and Divya, and both of them aim at creating a holistic wellness and telling us about what leading like a girl is, how you can use your feminine values and still stand out and still be one of the best leaders that you want to be, right? So, more about the fellowship later. I will now move on to the crux of the session and go ahead with how to create a smash resume. Akansha and me, I'll just give you a short introduction for both of us. Akansha is a business development executive at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, and she's done her MBA from IMT Ghaziabad. About me, I think Rita has already given you a fair enough introduction, so I'll skip that part in interest of time. We asked all of you to enter when you were registering for the session, and we've heard you. So according to you, what gets first noticed in a resume? Around 22% of you say that it's the cover letter, 39% of you say it's the pattern of the resume, and again 39% of you say it's the accomplishments that gets noticed first in a resume. So as we proceed with the session, I will bust a few myths and also clarify a few doubts that you have. Again, another question that we asked you to answer was, what do you find more difficult to do in a resume? And we have a 50-50% vote there. 50% of you say that the order in which you want to present yourself is the most difficult thing to do. And the others think that it's the language, the wording in which your resume is written. Again, we will bust the few myths that we have in this answer as we proceed with the session. As we, when we start, we should have an aim of what we want to take away from the session. So I would want you to focus on three things, and I will also be doing the same. I will be telling you how to utilize the first 30 seconds of the recruiter, because that is the only time you have. That is, you do not have more than 30 seconds. If you see the general day or general, day-to-day life of a hiring manager, he or she has around hundreds to 500 resume to screen across, and around 20 to 25 positions to fill for those resumes. Do you expect that person to go through each word or each line that you've written? Not even the bold content is completely read. Even the bold content is just skimmed through. The only thing that is given the most attention is what I will be telling you in this section, how to utilize the first 30 seconds of the recruiter. Then we will move forward to what structure should your resume be in. Some people say it should be a 2-page resume. Some people say it should not be more than 1 page. What is the correct answer? We will go with what is easy on the eye. How easy it is for the recruiter or the hiring manager to read through your resume. Because we do not want them to take a microscopic lens because your font is so small, or spend 1 hour because you've written 10 pages in your resume. So what structure should your resume be in? And last but not the least, we will see how to put your story into a resume, because you are a unique person. And what do you bring into the table that the other applicants are not bringing in? Or what is unique to you? You weren't born to be in the crowd, were you? If you were, you would not be in this webinar currently, because we want to outstand our current job requirements, or we want to be a unique person. So how do we put our unique story into our 1 or 2 page resume is how we will look, is what we will look into in this section. So going ahead, the first section, what is, how do you capture the 30 seconds of a resume? You have to give them what they seek, and do not make them wait for it. Like if you write what they want in the end of your resume or in the middle of your resume, you are going to lose it, because they do not have the time to go across that whole content to come for what they are wanting to seek. You don't want to make them wait for what they seek. We will see a IT project manager, a marketing manager, and a startup enthusiast short summary. And in this, we will tell you who you are in the first 30 seconds. Again, you should not use summary as a header. Use a professional snapshot or a role title. So here it says startup enthusiast. As soon as you see this resume, you have an idea of what this profile is for. What is that person good at? And what is the person wanting to apply at? If you write words like summary or about me or my introduction, you see these common resumes that float around online, and they give this formats of how you should write your resume. But these words are adding no value to your resume. These are common words, and if you pick up 10 resumes, almost 8 to 9 of them will have these words. So your resume should be standing out of them, and that is why you should write what is your current strength. Are you a marketing manager, or are you an IT consultant? You need to write that in the start of your resume so that the recruiter knows what exactly he is looking for. Then you highlight your key accomplishments, and in that case also emphasize on your soft skills, because no job role is complete without communication and some form of collaboration. You should be concise and not be too broad in defining your role. So we see an example here which is for a person who is a startup enthusiast and a management consultant. He says experienced strategist, entrepreneur, and startup enthusiast with a passion for building businesses and challenging the status quo. He has clearly mentioned what he is doing, what he is really passionate about, and what he wants to do. Then he mentions what are his key strengths. He says 8+ year track record of defining new business strategies, launching new ventures, and delivering operational impact, both as a co-founder and a management consultant. With a 2 or 3 line precise summary, he has given exactly what the recruiter is looking for and told him that what he is good at, right? If you write something which is in a normal format, about me, I am passionate about driving goals or looking forward to join an organization where I can improve my skill set. These lines are common and no recruiter will even spend a second reading it. So telling your recruiter who you are in the first 30 seconds, grasping his attention before he drifts apart is very important for your resume to land up in an interview call. Another example that we can take is of a marketing manager. In a general format of a resume, that is, what an online format will give you, you will not see the format giving you the strengths. So here it says marketing manager with over 8 years of experience in the first line. So whenever the recruiter is seeing the resume, he knows exactly what he's looking at. He says proven success in running email marketing campaigns and implementing marketing strategies that have pulled in a 20%, again a quantifiable and a goal that can be measured, increase in qualified leads. Then he also mentions his soft skill, proficient in content, social media, and inbound marketing strategies. In 2 or 3 lines, you know exactly the kind of person that you're looking for. Recruiters are not too much into you, not meaning to say that you are not valued for them, but they have a lot of options to choose from. The lesson two is make your resume skimmable. Elon Musk, as we all know, is not an unknown name. If he can fix his resume in one page or one side of a page, I'm sure we can all do. The most important part to take care here is mention to the recruiter only what he is looking for. You must have done an internship that is not related to the field of the job that you're applying in, or you must have done an extracurricular voluntary experience which does not add too much of value in the current job role. If you keep on mentioning things that are not very relevant to the recruiter, he might miss reading out on what is actually relevant and what is actually adding value. Again, there is a very specific order that I and Akansha would recommend to follow. The first one says use reverse chronological order. So you should start with where you are currently working. Here in the example of Elon Musk, we see he says founder, CEO, and lead designer. This is the place that he's currently working in. And as you go down his resume, you will see things that he has accomplished in the past. If you cannot fit your resume in one page at all and you think that you're missing out on things that you want to convey to your recruiter, but just because of space you're not being able to, you should go on for the second page, but do not exceed more than 2 pages. Again, do not make your font size extremely small just to make it into one page, because the recruiter doesn't have time to take a magnifying glass and read through your resume. If your resume is readable with defining colors, white spaces, paragraphs, headings, it is very easy to look into. And that is why, as I mentioned in the earlier section, we will go with easy on the eye style, because everyone wants to do work that is easy. Sending a resume to a person, he would not want to read it if it is very difficult to read. So easy on the eye is very important. It is the day of technology. Do not keep your resume monochrome with only black and white. Use colors, use clip art, use tables, use icons. Like in interests, you see that he has mentioned icons with each of his interests: physics, philanthropy, Twitter. All these are, you have icons for them available online, and with a little bit of effort you can make your resume look different from what others are sending across. Leave white spaces just to make sure that your resume is within 1 or 2 pages. Don't try to cram information and leave no space for the person to read. And most importantly, do a grammar check. If your grammar comes across as incorrectly, it shows you as a person who is not very concerned and who is not really looking forward for the job, because he has not put too much of effort in creating that resume. So it would be a big red flag. Make sure that your grammar is correct, and there are many tools online, including Grammarly, which can do a grammar check for you. The resume here that is shown is of Elon Musk, and it has been created by this website called novoresume.com. Personally, I have used this website for my resume also. It makes your job so easy because it has a lot of options for creating all these colors and icons, and it gives you a very basic skill set and wireframe design to be able to just fill in your information. It is free of cost and you can directly use it from their website. It's called novoresume.com. Especially for people who are joining after a break, or people who have changed their domains, you do not have a lot of experience or knowledge in the domain that you want to go, or you want to cover up and show this the years that you've not been working as a productive utilization to the personality that you are today. So if your resume looks out of the box, if your resume has defining colors, if your resume has a picture, here if you see you have a, at the center of the resume you have a picture, it gives a face to what you're speaking. Otherwise you have a little vague idea of who the person might or might not be. Sometimes names are confusing, you do not understand what the person is trying to say, but a picture gives a face to that information. So the resumes nowadays always have a picture. This website gives you the possibility of just including a snap art, and they will take care of the picture formation. So this is a very good tool to have. Your structure is a very important part of your resume. So we should start with what is most important: your name, picture, and your contact information. Because if they have to contact you and if they're not finding it in the resume, they might keep it in the side. They'll see to this later, and you might lose on this opportunity just because your contact wasn't easily available. Your name, a picture, and a contact information is very important in the starting of your resume. And something that again you cannot miss is your key skill set and summary. Here he has written aiming to reduce global warming through sustainable energy production and consumption. In one line, he has told exactly what he wants to do, right? Similarly, I showed you an example of the marketing consultant. In one or two lines, you have to convey what exactly you want to do. You can elaborate on your accomplishments later. This is not the right place to do that. The second part that comes in the structure is your work profile snapshot. Again, as I mentioned, it should be in reverse chronological order with all your work achievements. The reason why it should be in a reverse chronological order is because as you progress in your career, you keep taking in more responsibilities and more roles. If you write what you did as an intern before, and he reads that, and then he comes across he doesn't find it very interesting, he might never even come across the work that you are doing currently. Your work keeps on improving and you keep gaining more responsibilities. So it's important to write the current job role in the first section and then go in the reverse chronological order to your school or college. Some people I've seen who have 15 years of experience. As I was preparing for this session, I was going across a lot of resumes and they have their school ISC and board percentage mentioned, but they are, because they have mentioned so many things, the resume is coming across to 3 pages, 3.5 pages, and no recruiter has time to read all that. So it is important to see what you want to mention. So here it doesn't make sense to write his class 10th board percentage, right? What value would that add? It is meaningless here. He has already done so much. Similarly, all of you all have done so much in your life that you can mention, and sometimes it is okay to skip things like your board percentage or what grade you got in your college. Unless it is very important, try to make your information concise and in reverse chronological order. Very important to mention your professional courses and certifications, because this is something that must come in earlier in your resume as after your work profile snapshot is done, because it adds on directly to your skill set, and there must be some certificate or some course that your recruiter might be looking for, and if he sees that in your resume, you might directly get an interview call. So your achievements and certificates should come after your educational courses and certifications. Relevant internships is very important. If you have interned in, say, a Reliance or a BSNL during your second year or third year of college, it is not important to mention that internship. It will not add any value if you're looking for a consultant role or a data analytics role, because that internship is not relevant. If you have not a lot of things to fill in your resume, or if you feel that you're lacking in content, you can go ahead and do that. But if you already have a lot of content to fill, it is good to skip these things that are not relevant. Any interest that you hold should also be mentioned. So for example, Elon Musk has mentioned Twitter, or he has mentioned reading or video games. It does not directly uh, associate with his aim, that is aiming to reduce global warming. But then it tells the recruiter what else they can talk about to that person during the interview call or when they are hired. Every person wants an interesting person to join their team. If you have no interest, if you come across as a person who has no interest, who has just been coding or just been into work, you might come across as a put off. So it is good to mention some interest and something that you have attained in that interest. So suppose if you mention reading, or suppose if you mention video games, and if you're a national level video game player, you can add that, and it will show some kind of association to your interest, right? And it will come across as a person, it will come across that you're a person who can be talked to, who can be discussed with apart from the work also. So recruiters will look out for less than how much you are looking out for them, because they have many options. So your job is to make their job easier and don't be a job on them. Here I've written that, which means that they should not feel that you're reading your resume is a task. It should come across as a very easy thing and something that is giving the best of your knowledge, the best of your personality to them. The third lesson is achievement before responsibility. So whenever we are trying to write a resume, we have a tendency to write, I was expected to do this or that in my previous organization, or I was responsible for increasing the sales from this number to that number. But we do not write what you have achieved. So an example here would be created an innovation database using Salesforce. So here you're telling exactly what action you have done. avoid words which are very common, like motivated, skilled, passionate, creative, strategic, focused. These are words which are present in 9 out of 10 resumes, and no one can describe you better than you. So you can use words like achieved or guided or launched or trained, an action word basically. These action words are also called power words. If you use these words, your employer or your recruiter is directly getting an insight of what you have done. If you are seeing that you were responsible for a certain task, he or she might not be fully sure whether you were able to complete that task and whether you were able to bring the outcome that was expected. But if you give a direct action item associated with your responsibility, saying that I have created an innovative database using Salesforce, or I have managed a financial team of 5 plus employees, instead of saying I was responsible for a team of 5 employees, it gives an action item and a word which exactly tells what your capability is and what you have accomplished. These words are called power words because they give power to your resume. So focus on the results that you have delivered more than what the responsibility that you were given. Your resume should be very focused on a current job. It should not be common. So it's not that you build a resume once and then you can forward it or apply in 10 different organizations. For each organization, we recommend that you should do a customized resume. How will you do that customized resume? Is by reading the job description very carefully and scrutinizing each and every word. Now, once you have read the job description, you know what exactly the employer is looking for, right? If you use a little bit of your own experience, you can map everything that you have done to what he has been looking for. So suppose the job description says looking for a specific skill. Say for example, in IT, if they say they're looking for a Java developer, you will have some experience in Java. Maybe in your organization you have not done it, but in college you've done it, or you've done a side project, or you've done freelancing in that. And if you mention that as your first accomplishment and skill set, you are a strategic person because you have customized your resume according to what your recruiter is wanting. If you write the same point after 4 or 5 things that the recruiter is not looking for, there is a high probability that you might not land an interview because the recruiter will not read up to that point. So again, it is the same idea of making the job easier for the resume so that we can land an interview call. And the only thing that you have to do is customize your resume for each application. Read the job description very closely, customize your resume according to each job, and focus on what the recruiter is looking for. After you've done that, you should highlight the skills or the new technologies that you have used and acquired, because that adds special weightage to your resume. And highlight things that are associated with team grooming or developing values or any kind of change management. If your team was earlier not working in, say, an agile mindset, and you have made sure that the people are working in scrums and in an agile mindset, it is a very important accomplishment. And though you might not have a specific role like a scrum master, but if you put something in your resume which says that I have done a change management in a team of 5 or 10 people, it comes across as a very strong point. So you have to customize your story according to what the job requires, and you can do that using the power words. So for our discussion, we will have one of the sample resumes from one of the attendees. Tanya is also currently online with us, and I would want to thank her for being very generous and allowing us to take her resume for discussion. So we will see the before and after of Tanya's resume, what it was before and what after she followed the guidelines, how it changed to a much powerful resume. So if you see, Tanya started off saying aiming to acquire domain knowledge related to leadership and management in order to enhance my skills and grow as an individual. This looks like a very generalized statement. It is not focusing on any achievement. Like I showed you in the example earlier, where I said brand management or marketing consultant, it was giving me an exact notion, an exact criteria of what the person is. But here I am getting a very generalized idea, and I don't know what Tanya specializes in, what is she even looking for in this job. And this statement will be found in 8 out of 10 resumes because it is like a format. So avoid statements like these. Instead, what she can do is write something which is very, very specific. So something like looking for management in this, or consultant in FMCG, anything like that, which is very, very specific. Again, Tanya has not followed the reverse chronological order here, where she says her internship was in August 2016, and then she goes on to say 2015 work experience later. So you should always write your internships in reverse chronological order, and it also holds for any kind of work experience that you have, because it gives the recruiter an exact idea of what you are doing and what you have done earlier without having to see which year it was for. She has written her contact information, her email ID, and her address as only New Delhi, which is okay, but it would be preferable to have a photo attached so that the resume has a recruiter has a face to attach to what is being told in the resume. Again, it is very, very readable. She has used colors, but not very defining colors. She does not have too much of segregation, which can again be done better. In academics, she has mentioned her professional certification along with her 12th and 10th grade certificates, which is not a very good thing to do, because the person might just see 10th and 12th and skip these professional certification, and it in some cases the certification might add a lot of value to your resume. So what you should do is make a separate column and a separate paragraph which says professional certification, and add all your certifications and courses in that. Your work and professional experience should not be included in this professional certification. It should be only your certificates and the course that you've done. Grammar is a very important factor, as I mentioned. If you see in the yellow portion highlighted in the resume, there is a grammar mistake. Now, in the third line, it says build and maintain relationships with various startup ecosystem players. It should be built because it's in the past tense. So small things like these might come into the recruiter's notice, and it might be a turn off for your resume. It might seem small, but sometimes some people are very, very focused on the language, and it might become a negative red flag. Team projects, efforts and industry specific jargon is very, very important. If you're applying to a finance background job, if you apply and if you can use jargon which is very finance industry related, it comes across as a knowledgeable person. So your recruiter will know that you are used to this jargon, and that is why you're using this. So for IT, if I give you an example, if I just say proficient in databases, it might come across as, I don't know if she even knows which databases we are using. But if I say proficient in MySQL database, you know exactly that she has used MySQL database. So industry specific jargon is very important in your resume. If you see towards the end of the second column, Tanya has written her published works, and which is a very distinguishing skill. Not many resumes will have some publication associated with them. If you have any distinguishing skill, say you've spoken on a very big platform, you've presented a paper outside India, or even in one of the very premier institutes in India, you have got acceptance in IEEE domain, or anything which is adding some edge to your story, and which is a distinguishing skill, make sure you mention that, and you mention that in a detailed manner. Here she has written, views on Archie should not be killed, and Style and Comfort got published in Times of India on 6th May 2014 and 29 April 2014 respectively. It is a detail of what has got published. And if you're sending in online resumes, you can also send in links. So for me personally, when I send out a resume, I make sure I put in links for all the things that I feel are distinguishing. For example, I put a link to my TED talk, I put a link to a few scholarships that I've attained, I put a link to internships that I have done in Germany and Paris. I put any link, a link to a recommendation that I got through a mentor when I was working for Google. So many things that I put links to that. They do not occupy space in your resume, and if the recruiter is interested in that, they can directly click on that and gain more insight on what is of interest to them. So it is very, very important to make sure of these technology, aids that we get as the resume sending process becomes more and more online. We can discuss more and more about this, but I would also want to make sure that you are given answers to the questions that you have. So I would want to open the dais to questions that you would have, and if you have less questions, maybe I will continue with what I have to say.
That was great, Payal. And I think I need to relook at my CV now and maybe include some of the pointers that you have mentioned. Um, I actually told Payal that we need to give a lot of time for Q&A because the content is great. We do get inputs in terms of a very generic set of things that we need to do in the CV, but all of us would have specifics that we need addressed. So we have a lot of time now available with Payal and Akansha. So if people have questions, please do raise your hands, or you can put it out in the chat window or the Q&A window, and Payal and Akansha will address it.
Right. Also, to add on, both our email IDs are written down here, and if you wish, you could make a note of both the email IDs, and any questions that you have post the sessions, or if you want us to personally work on your resume, you could please feel free to send your resumes and also the job profile that you are trying to apply for across to both our email IDs, and we would try to be of best help.
That's great, Pam. Who wants to go first? I'm sure there are enough questions. People can raise their hands, or they can put it out in the chat window. If there are no questions, then I will just request Payal. Okay, Alpana has a question. Yes, Alpana, you can please ask your question. I have unmuted you. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to know what is a good way of explaining a long break after which one could be returning to a career. Hello?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you to finish. Alpana, right? Did I get your name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So, a break of how many years are we talking about here?
9
Okay.
years.
Okay. So, with the research that I was doing for the session, I found a few examples of people who are joining after a break, and I will just share a few with them, and then also share what I feel is the best. So,
Okay.
I saw one or two resumes where they say exactly no work or no experience that they've gained in that 9 or 10 years break. They just say a break from work, and that leaves the recruiter with a very open-ended question that why did you take the break? Was it because of personal reasons? Was it because you had a layoff and you could not get another job? So the recruiter is confused. Another way that I've seen people doing is mentioning exactly why the break was. So they say 2009 to 2012, working on this, and you can always add on things that you've been working on yourself. So it need not even be things like doing a Coursera course or doing a Linda course. It can be things like working on a voluntary experience, or working for my family business, or anything that they cannot have doubts on. So if you see that you are working with an association not professionally, also you can say working on a personal level with a voluntary for a voluntary experience in such and such domain with blind children, or trying to raise more awareness about homosexuality in my own circle, or whatever you're working towards a cause. You do not have a particular degree or a particular certificate to be associated for that cause, but then that you have developed yourself in that person, and it will come across as an interview question for you. So the recruiter will 110% ask you that, okay, so tell me more about this, and that is your golden ticket. That is when you have to impress the recruiter that yes, I did take a break, and maybe it was of a lot of time, but these were my reasons, and this is what I have developed in my personality. Given this opportunity, I would earlier be able to handle it in this way, but because I have taken this break, I see I'm developed as a person, and now I am doing this and this better. So you have to make the recruiter convinced that your break has added some value in yourself. Like it not come across as a professional experience of that years. You were not working. Maybe you were in a personal, you had personal reasons. And you can also mention personal reasons. I saw one resume, and it is more commonly women, unfortunately, who have personal reasons, because as we are progressing towards a more equal society. I think that will change coming in the future. But she had just plainly written that took a maternity break and could not join office due to personal reasons, something like that. And it was completely okay, because I think recruiters do understand that we are in a society where women are more pressured to take care of a child, and we are slowly moving towards an equal society, but it will take a course of time. So there is no negative marks or no red flags given to you just because you've taken that break. But if you really want to make that break also a golden ticket, what I would recommend is leave it as a question, which make sure that the recruiter is stopping to ask you that, and 110% he will or she will. So when you get that question answered, come across as making that time very useful for you. So you can say like, I have taken this break, but I've read so much more on this technology, and I've worked on myself so much more that I can handle teams better, or I can handle my reactions better, or becoming a mother and going through that whole raising a child experience has been very humbling, and I feel that I can some value addition to what he will have in the job requirement, right?
I get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And I would just like to mention that we did a campaign last year before Restart Her, which was about having a 30-second pitch ready for yourself when you meet anybody, not necessarily a recruiter, because we struggle usually introducing ourselves, and especially when you're on a break, when you don't know what is it that you need to focus on in those first 60 seconds that you're introducing yourselves. So I will, after this session, send you the link to all the videos of the 30-second pitches that women on a break have actually presented. So you will know how they've explained the break and why the break and what they did during the break and what they want to do now when they are ready to get out of the break and get into the workforce. So as Payal said, there are no reasons and no excuses to be made about the break. Be open about it, but there is definitely enough learning that one has had during the break, whether it be for your personal life or professional life, to make a mention of those softer aspects that you have learned during the break, and that should take you to the next level.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, next question.
I'd read somewhere that the only silly question is the one not asked. So I'm just saying in case it helps.
Anything in terms of the responses you gave on the registration form? Sometimes we find it very difficult to answer the questions on the registration form, but because it's a mandatory question, we just put something in there. Maybe that's left you thinking whether it's really that or something else. If you want to comment about that.
For the responses that we received, right?
Yeah. Or if you have a CV ready, which may not necessarily be in the same structure that Payal told us, you may want to ask even an example. Read out something from your CV and say, hey Payal, this is how I have written it. How do you think I should change it? That's also welcome. Okay, there is a particular question from Neha. Will the link to the session be also shared just to rework? Yes, we are recording this session, and we will definitely send the recording at some point in time. It may not be immediately today. It will take a few days, but we will definitely send. But there's nothing like, an online question asked and getting some inputs in terms of how to rework. So if there is something specific that you want to ask, please go ahead. Okay, since we're not getting any questions, if there's anything else, Payal, that you would like to address, please do go ahead.
Sure. So I would just want to mention about the responses that we had received earlier. So when we had taken the answers from you during registration, a lot of you said that the accomplishments and the cover letter is the most important, aspect of your resume. But it is the first thing that that gets noticed in your resume is what we discussed. It's your summary. It's the summary that gets discussed, that gets noticed, and it is that one or two liner that you write on the top of your resume after your name. So your resume will be only screened for accomplishments and your pattern once you have crossed that barrier. So your 30 seconds to impress your recruiter will fall in your summary. And what do you find the most difficult to do in your resume? The order in which you want to present yourself. We've clarified that it should be a summary, then the reverse chronological order of your work ex and your accomplishments and distinguishable skills, and also not to forget your interests. The language is again very personal, dependent on the person and the job that you're looking for. Some job requirements require the resume to be extremely concise, like say a marketing consultant role might want you to explain what you have done in marketing, or how you have helped a client, how how your consulting has brought across a change in sales or a change in profit. So you cannot just directly write that without using industry specific jargon. So the language is very important, and if you do not want to find it difficult, I would say simply use your industry specific jargon, because it will impress the recruiter and also make it very easy for you to write, because you are aware of what your industry is currently doing, right? And make sure you do a grammar check with both the things, because a wrong grammar is not very impressive.
So Payal, anything that you can tell us about video CVs? Because I think the trend is moving towards presenting a audio video CV along with the paper CV.
Right. Right. So, I have personally seen that whenever there is a video question to that needs to be answered in a resume, um, people prefer reading it from a script, or people prefer doing and doing something that they're not very comfortable in, like trying to do a PPT share and then try to read out from their notes. I would say be very natural and try to answer like the recruiter is sitting in front of you, because that gives you that genuine feeling, and the recruiter will feel that you are telling it as if he's or she is in just sitting in person near you. So the connect that you can make, if you're seeing on the screen of your notes or your Kindle note or whatever, that connect is cannot be replaced by one or two sentences or one or two better vocabulary words that you would use using a script. So I would say answer it as if you're answering the person face to face.
Time again for allowing the audience ask questions or comments. How important is it for us to sync our LinkedIn with the resume, according to you, Payal?
Right. That's a very, very good question. And I was thinking whether I should mention it, but then I felt that it is something, if that will be raised by the audience, then maybe I can bring it up. So I was the person who would never keep their LinkedIn updated. And I felt that in India, it is not important. It's only in abroad and only in West, the LinkedIn profiles are taken into consideration. But I was mistaken, and I have, modified my mistake. It is very important to keep your LinkedIn synced, because in the era that we are living in now, you don't know what opportunity can come to you if you keep your LinkedIn updated. A very recent incident has happened in my life where my LinkedIn has, because of my LinkedIn updation, I received an opportunity out of India to be able to help them in some situations. Not the point of importance here, but the point is that you should keep your LinkedIn updated, because recruiters are constantly screening for employers, hiring people they want. And if your LinkedIn is updated, you're not losing anything. So if you're putting in effort, it will be more than what it is worth. Some way or the other, you will be able to get some opportunity out of it. And another thing that is beneficial is you can ask people to endorse you. As you keep changing organizations, you might lose touch with the previous employers, but if they have their endorsements in your LinkedIn profile, after 4 years of leaving the company, you might not be very comfortable calling up your manager and saying that, can you endorse me for that skill? But if you're in the organization and if you have a LinkedIn profile, you can always drop a one-liner email saying that, can you give me a feedback here? Or at least in your notice period, you can ask people in that organization to endorse you and give you some feedback, which is very countable. Every feedback that you get from a reputed person that you have worked with is very countable for your next employer. And that can happen only if you keep your LinkedIn updated. So I think it's very, very important.
Something that I have noticed over the last few months, because every time we ask for registrations for any events, be it online or a face-to-face workshop, we do ask people their LinkedIn details. We don't make it mandatory because we understand that some of them don't have a LinkedIn, or they may not have really updated it. And it's very surprising for me that people don't put it there. Though it's not a mandatory field, I would say that if you have a LinkedIn presence, please put in there, because today we are moving away from a physical world to a very virtual world. So as Payal said, putting links in there to whatever you have accomplished in your life is very, very important. People will want to go through that online check to see your online presence, because that's where it tells them that, okay, these are a few things that you really accomplished, and here is proof of your accomplishment via the virtual world before they can actually meet you and discuss that in person. So it's extremely important to please have a LinkedIn updated, and use it wherever there is a need to use it. And what has been your experience in terms of the other forums that are available today, right? There are a lot of communities, online communities available, like for technology, there's a GitHub and many things like that. What's been your experience around being part of such communities and trying to showcase that via either your resume or LinkedIn?
Right. So, for me, I love writing and I have a blog of my own, and I also do a little bit of poetry on Facebook. And though these are not very, very important skills to have if I'm applying for, say, a IT developer role, I make it a point and I make sure that all of these links are mentioned in my resume during in the interest section. So suppose in my interest section, I've written writing, I put a colon and then I mention that link. It will take up around 20-25 characters, right? But it adds so much credibility to your resume. So suppose I'm saying I love working on Linux, and then I've done a project on GitHub which is completely on Linux. I can add that link. It will add so much credibility. See, we all know that we do a little bit of flaunting, a little bit of bragging in a resume, and that is completely fine. I think it's nothing to be ashamed of, because we live in the world where, as it is, I'm not trying to be, not trying to be a sexist person, but then as it is, women are already very under confident in their own skin, and we go out thinking that the other person is better and we are not good enough for the job, even though the guy who is actually applying along with us might have less skill set. We will end up thinking that, might he does it better, because he will have some kind of confidence in his face that we will not be having. So things like this will add on to our confidence also. You're going to a interview, and the person recruiter already has the links because you have them in your resume, be it GitHub or be any blog. I write a blog which has only, say, 200 followers, 220 followers. Not a very big deal. But if I just put the link, it adds credibility to what I'm saying. So I think taking advantage of this online presence and mentioning it in links in wherever you can. So even if there's a call, so suppose I'm just giving you a very small example, this webinar, it gets uploaded to YouTube, and I say as an interest saying, being associated by especially women-centric forums, and I'm interested in public speaking or something like that, and I put say a TEDx speech link, and then I put a comment, I put this link. It is giving them two instances to show credibility to what I've said. So you can avoid some and put some, but then it is very, very important to make sure that your online presence is established in the form of LinkedIn, in the form of, some people create their own website as a resume. So I have seen a friend of mine, he has bought a domain which is not very expensive, around 1,500 rupees, bought the domain saying xyzagarwal.com, and then he has made a resume in that domain because he's so enthusiastic about technology. So a person will think, okay, this guy has actually bought a domain and made a website for a resume. It is something new. Anything which is unique is always valued and appreciated. So try to see what uniqueness you can add to your resume. Suppose you've taken a break. In that break, you've made very specific and unique video of how to make your child do something, okay, and that is on YouTube, and it has gained some 100 or 1,000 likes. You can put that as a link, saying that I found myself doing vlogging, or I found myself YouTubing during that time, and I got a new interest. I edited a video. I did something that I was not used to doing earlier. So it shows your interest in learning new skill sets. Anything that you have, there is no harm in adding it to your resume as long as it adds some value.
Sure. Again, an opportunity to all of you. If you have any questions, let's make use of this time. Akansha, is there anything that you would like to talk about? I have unmuted you, Akansha, in case you want to. Okay, there's one question. Let me just take that. So Chitra is asking, when the interviewer asks, tell me something about yourself that is not there in your resume, what answer does he expect?
Wow, that's a very good question. So we were actually planning a series for this, and this first one was supposed to be on creating a smash resume. so that you at least land an interview call. The second one, if you stay tuned, will be focusing on how to, create a very everlasting impression during an interview. And just because I do not want to leave this question addressed, I will share of what my thoughts are on this process, but I would just want you to be informed that there will be an entire new session for how to handle interviews. um, to answer your question, when the interviewer asks that what, tell me about something that is not written in resume, that is when your interest will come into play. Like I said, in the Elon Musk resume, right, he has written so many things. Now when he says not written in resume, it doesn't mean that it should not be mentioned anywhere vaguely. In that way, you will be missing out on mentioning your key strengths. So you have to be very subtle and very clever. So you cannot read out a line in your resume, but you can say something like, so I a very interesting incident happened to me, say, a week back. I'm just giving the answer. This is not a real situation. I'm just answering your question. So you can say a very interesting situation happened to me last week, and as I've mentioned in my resume, I have a very I'm very interested towards writing and philanthropy. So I got I got an invite from this place asking me to come and speak. But because I am also a public speaker, I had my Toastmasters come in. So you try to make your answer sound like, it doesn't have to be extremely true. Nirja, correct me if I'm wrong, I have been in many situations where I have gone a little out of the truth arena just to make an everlasting impact. You have to make sure that your answer is not a lie. Obviously you should not be saying lies, but then a little exaggeration, or maybe it didn't happen last week, it happened, all three were different incidents that happened over last month, but yeah, trying to make it into one. Making an everlasting impact is not an illegal or an unfair thing to do, I would say. Nirja, correct me if I'm wrong, at least I do that practice, but you would want to add in your own views. I would want to say, take something of your resume and say, as I've mentioned in your resume, and add a very good incident, or this happened to me, or I am actually interested in this, and I was studying for these many hours about this, and I came to know about this. So something that will create a very everlasting impact on that. He is going to remember that incident even if he forgets your name. Something like that should be said when you say that, tell me something about you that is not in the resume.
Hello.
Yeah, Akansha. Is there
Yeah,
something
hi
that you would
Neerja.
like to speak?
Yeah. So I'm not in a very. Can everybody hear me? I hope there's no disturbance.
No, we can hear you, Akansha.
Yes. So I'd like to take up the question of the video resume that was posted earlier on in the webinar. And I'll just tell you two things. First is, where and when is a video resume used? So of course you can't send a video resume to an HR, so that you have to send a paper resume. Most video resumes, as we were talking about, are a step ahead in showing what you actually want to portray yourself as. So as a confident person, or as a you have a specific skill that you want to highlight through a video resume, is where you use it. And so since you cannot send it, you mostly try and upload it in your website or your LinkedIn or wherever possible, so that the HR, should they want to search for it, they can actually reach it. But otherwise, mostly that's why we were saying, you use infographics in your paper resume because you want to make it more expressive beyond words. That, and I think second is, video resume as a trend is growing right now, so sometimes HRs may ask for it. So should you want to, we would want to be ready for it. And so because they most of the times, say in a business school, if you're applying to, or if you're not applying to a job, or you're just applying to a job where it's a consulting sort of a job, there they might ask for a video resume, because they want to see how you talk, they want to see how you express yourself, they want to see your face expressions, they want to see how you use your hand gestures. All of your body language is noted, so it's good to have one ready. As of now, maybe the market isn't as ready for it, or as asking for it, but it's one trend that will come on in the next couple of years.
Great. Thank you, Akansha. So there's another question from Rashmi. What is the difference between resume and CV? Is there a difference between resume and CV?
Yeah, it's the same thing. There's no difference absolutely whatsoever.
And before we close, let me just ask Akansha and Payal, what triggered you to think of this as a topic that is needed today for women? because you would have, spoken about a variety of things, but there must have been something that you have seen, observed in your experience, something that worked, didn't work for you, for your friends. So if you can possibly, mention a couple of things which triggered, because that's also something that women need to know so that they work on your CV or resume accordingly. And Shachi says that she wants to answer this question about resume and CV. Will allow her to talk about it after you answer my question.
Sure. So, yeah, I think one of the most compelling reasons that we picked this topic was that at least in my experience, and I have seen that a lot of women, and it's a little unfortunate to say that a lot of women are actually very unconfident in their resume. So if you go to a man and ask him that can I have a look at the resume, even if he will have only 5 or 10% skill in one language or one technology, he will have that mentioned very boldly, and he will be able to defend that he knows something about it, and then he has worked something about it, and maybe even bluff a little. But if you see generally, how this is how the circumstance is, a woman is confident to mention her skill set only if she's 110% sure that she knows it. Something, even if she has a small doubt, or even if she sees a small risk, she will withhold that skill set with her and not be confident to showcase it to the employer. Also, she will not be very confident in mentioning things which are of interest to us. So suppose she is interested in cooking. Cooking is seen as a very female centric skill set to have, which is not the case. I think every skill in itself has value. So there is no harm in mentioning cooking in interest, and maybe if you shared some cooking recipes online and they have garnered a lot of appreciation, putting a link towards it is also not wrong. So in your interest section is totally for you. It is covering only, say, 1/12th or 1/13th page of your resume, a very small part, and it is only for you to tell you what you are as a person. So I think it is very important to land with a resume that you defines you, and as a feminine person also, what are your interests, what are your skill sets, what have you done differently? Because only with a great resume you can land an interview call.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll also speak a little on this. So the job market, as it is very competitive, and as I said, most of the people, they inadvertently become clones of each other when they are applying for a particular job, and it's very difficult because everybody is usually updated with their own skills to stand out. And so the first piece of you that reaches a recruiter is your resume. You cannot physically usually always go. It's very difficult as it is to land an interview. So the resume becomes your single most important identity for the recruiter. That's why he's saying, put as much of you into it. Include a picture, include your key skill sets, something that stays with the recruiters so that they can remember you after they've scanned thousands of CVs. So that one is very important. Second, even when you go for interviews, like I'll give my own particular example. I had applied for a job being a commerce student for a chemical engineering preferred role. So when I had gone with my CV, what I had done was with each section, say for example, a professional experience section, for my education section, I'd put on a quote, a quotation. It could be either my own, or it could have been, I could have heard it from somewhere, something that Einstein had said, or something that I personally believe in. You put a quote with that. And so that's what stood out for me. And when I went to the interview, and every interviewer inadvertently always has your resume, they pick on something that they can have an interesting conversation on. So they picked on that quote, and we had a lengthy discussion on it, and so that stays. So each and everything that's very specific to you, you would want to put there. And so you can stand out even after the interview. You leave part of you with the interview. So I think that is it's very important to customize your interview, so your resume in that sense.
Great, thank you. So as we're running out of time, I'll just allow Shachi to, express what she wanted to. I'll just unmute you, Shachi. Shachi, can you please respond to that question?
Yeah, so this is Shachi. I have been into professional resume writing for quite a long time. This question where it was asked, where resumes and CVs, how are they different? for Indian audience, it's mostly the same, resume and CV. But since we have been working in this profile, we have seen a marked difference in how resumes are and CVs are prepared. If there can be two ways we can differentiate this jargon, this name jargon. So if you go by geography, India, some people say resume, some people say CV. If you look forward to European countries, then it is always the word CV, which is used, not the resume. If you find a customer in US or if you see a candidate in US, they will always be mentioning resume rather than CV. Again, for Middle Eastern geographies, the word CV is used rather than resume. Now, this is the difference from the perspective of geography. Again, we can also differentiate in terms of the profiles which are being handled. So, if it's an IT professional or a sales professional or any other professional other than people who are studying or who are doctors or lawyers, for them, resume is used. But if you are, let's say, a research scholar, a research fellow, or you are a doctor or a lawyer, for you, the term which is commonly used is CV. So why we say CV? Because CV is lengthier as compared to resume. The recommended length for resume is usually 1 or 2 pages. For CV, the length is not like we can limit it to 2 pages or 3 pages. It can go to 4 pages as well. If we consider, let's say, a research scholar, they will have patents, they will have publications, and all that has to be mentioned. So from that perspective, we call that particular piece of content as
Great. Thank you so much, Shachi, for that piece of information. And we have gone beyond the time stipulated for this masterclass. Thank you, Akansha. Thank you, Payal, for doing this for the Inca community. And the recording of this will be made available on YouTube and will also be sent to all the registered participants. So those who are here will get it, and those who were not able to attend will also get it. And I hope you take some actions from this and work on your resume and make it smashing.
Awesome, Nirja. That was a great last quotation to say.
All right. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.